Welcome back to the Two Promises podcast. Let's dive right into another exciting adventure with BD and crew as he pursues his new passion of one day finding the most epic bourbon. The Two Promises team send their special thanks to Hobie and the Huckleberries for their masterful theme music. Grab a glass, relax, and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited to be recording again. I would just like to say thank you so much to the ladies that have just been rocking the last, month and a half, 2 months. I'm so excited to hear from more of our powerful ladies. We got some more of them coming up for you, so don't wait. But in the meantime, I'm just going to throw out a quick monologue to manage some time. So we're going to make this a little bit different of a feel. We're going to go for a little bit of humor here. So, the elections are over. I think we can all breathe again. I know I can a little bit more. Things are settling back down. Again, we still don't know what the future holds, but we at least have some idea of who's going to be kind of whatever. Doesn't matter. Elections are over. We can breathe again. I can breathe again. We're going to humor. That's where we're doing it. So, funny story. Recently, I got to see my doctor. My real doctor. Which was the first time I actually got to meet him face-to-face because of, all the social distancing and the protocols that we are doing to reduce the spread, which is super important. So, I'm glad that we're doing that. Long story short, the situations surrounding our meeting are quite comical. So, mostly because of how I needed to approach him to bypass some of those social distancing barriers to see him more readily, based on how all of our scheduling systems work. So I had to go to the emergency room because I had some pain in my groin area. I suspected a hernia. And just as things would have it, my hernia was not, let's just say, showing. And for those of you who are not aware of what a hernia is, this is going to be more of a medical episode. So we're going to talk about some gross things and some anatomy things. So if this is not you, maybe find a different episode. Not trying to, provide content to the wrong audience here. So be careful, ears what you hear, or whatever, I don't know. But humor, right? So, I got a hernia. Well, I suspected a hernia. And for those of you who don't know what a hernia is, it can kind of appear in different areas, kind of in that groin area. And men are actually a lot more susceptible to them than females. And again, I'm not a doctor, so, don't do anything weird with the things that I say, because that would be really weird. So, your men, because of how our reproductive organs develop, they start out inside of us and then they drop and lower over time. Females, they kind of stay inside, and that turns into the female reproductive organs, uterus, all that kind of stuff, right? But that is a more dense organ structure than what we men have there. We have mostly just muscle tissue, some connective tissue and stuff to hold it in there. So we are a lot more susceptible to this for different things. Things that could be load-bearing, grunting, bearing down, lifting heavy things, manly things. Caveman smash, right? Okay, how exactly they occur, whatever. Just know that they happen. And those are some of the reasons why. Okay, so I'm finally getting to see this doctor who I have been trying to see since last year. And we won't get into that. But I look at him, he looks at me, it's kind of like our little annual check-in, It was really good to see him, really good to hear his voice, I'm not going to lie. So I'm leaning back in my chair, you'd think that I was just gangsters all get out. He kind of sits down, makes himself comfortable. I got my hand kind of maybe in my pocket or, holding my groin area. Well, I'm sure I looked so thug. And Like, yeah, good to see you. He's like, yeah, you lost some weight. I'm like, yep, lost about 30 pounds like we talked about on the phone. And it's like, so what's what brings you in? So I had to go through the ER, then get them to ask for a walk-in appointment, so then I could get scheduled for a walk-in appointment. So that's kind of how it works. So then I finally got to walk in, right? So I walk into the ER, and then I walk into also a different appointment that had nothing to do with it, but I, walked in there and talked to them about it, and then I finally got to talk to my doctor about it, who actually does exist. He is not a, robot or whatever, just a voice behind a phone. So I'm holding in my guts, because that's essentially what a hernia is. It's whenever your guts kind of poke out through your abdominal wall, your intestines, your abdominal wall, like inside your body, and then could get trapped just somewhere outside of where they're supposed to be. Now, if they get restricted, then that is what would be considered an emergent surgery, emergent condition, because it's life, limb, or eyesight, because you're going to lose blood flow to that area. Now, obviously, gut health, guts, all that kind of stuff is very important, and if that starts dying, well, that cuts out what we can do. So we need to reduce as much tissue damage and death of the intestines as we can, so that's why it can go into an emergency surgery procedure category or whatever. But until then, it's one of those things that you just manage, or you get a workup consultation for to get a surgery to correct it if it does not repair itself. Depending on your lifestyle, your line of work, the things that you do would lead into one's decision to maybe have this procedure. So, having finally gotten to talk to a doctor about just a myriad of issues that I have that I would really have liked to have discussed with people, but I kind of just bottled up like an idiot and didn't really get off of my chest in a timely manner. So, it all kind of came out at once, all at the wrong time. Right before a pandemic. So, anyway, now I'm spilling my guts on the air as I'm holding in my guts. So we're talking about this and some of my anxieties and some of my concerns and some of my wellness things, because that was the thing about the whole health thing that I really liked about my doctor whenever I first talked to him, is how he saw me as a whole person, and how he saw that I was fighting my battles, I was fighting some of my struggles, particularly with alcohol consumption and with the food that I was eating, my lifestyle choices, to be real. And I can't just say it was alcohol, because it was also the food that I was eating, because the food that I was eating was also driving. It was just a cycle of whatever habits that I had established. Let's just put it like that, because that's the truth of the matter. Because alcohol is a medicinal therapy. Period. End of statement. It fits into drug categories. I'm not even going to get into that, because we're talking about humor and how I'm holding my guts in. Because that's the purpose of this, right? I don't know if it's because it's the day after St. Patty's Day. I don't know if it's because I'm in a rush, because I need to go get groceries for the casa, or what. But we're just getting this out, right? Spilling my guts, holding in my guts, talking about hernias, hernia prevention, right? Good lifting techniques, right? Good lifestyles, reducing those anxieties, you know what I mean? So that you're not in a hurry, so that maybe you're not lifting things in an erratic motion. I'm not saying that that's how I got my hernia. I'm just talking about some general preventative tips, because, we are having to move a little bit more into isolation. I don't know who has access to what healthcare or what, so the more information that we can kind of get out there collectively, I believe is just going to create a lot more comfortability and safety and security around the topic of health. Maybe if we can talk about it from ways and angles that we don't see in some of the traditional education system, which I'm really excited to see a lot of improvement there from whenever I was, a student in my more formative years. But I digress, because again, checkup. I'm having my checkup. And so we're talking about, okay, well, yeah, I'm working on trying to get back to work, but this, on account of my guts hanging out, it might be kind of hard for me to, do my normal job. And he's like, yeah, I can kind of see that. Did you talk to anybody about it? It's like, yeah, talked. It's like, oh, what did they say? He's like, well, finally we got to talk to you. He's like, yep, okay, cool. Yep, well, I guess they couldn't see the guts hanging out because they were just not in. But yeah, I think that everything is trending towards incarceration. So that is the term. $1 million word there, because that could save a life, right? Talk about the golden hour. Sometimes words can mean a lot of very powerful things used in the right context and the right setting to let's just say, justify or allow certain procedures or conditions to exist that might not normally be present in that environment because a side condition or a trend of conditions have been met to release a different category of cause and effect relations that we can access in this kind of physical world and world that we're existing in, at least in our structure here where I am recording this in the world that I live in, because that is real. So, I mean, my checkup, all in all, I would say went pretty good because now I'm finally kind of on that track to definitive care by cutting out a lot of these middle people, which I didn't understand were middle people because of the way that the process was explained to me and my experiences moving into it. What I was told and what I experienced were like two very different things. So it's kind of like, watching a commercial for any restaurant and you see like the marketing production of the food quality and like how it's presented and how it looks. And then whenever you get there, it's like, man, the lettuce is like, it's fresh, but it doesn't look as crispy. It's a lot more wilted. You know what I mean? And it's just like, doesn't have that crispy flavor that you were envisioning, right? You saw the commercial, but then you get there and it's like, oh no, this is not what it is at all. It's actually completely different. Yeah, it is a cheeseburger. It'll fill the needs, whatever. But depending on what your commercial experience was and what your experience was is going to be how your experience is going to differ. So, not trying to compare, make false comparisons or anything. I'm just illustrating some concepts and points. Okay? So, that's how I was able to make this happen so that I could communicate in a language that maybe I didn't expect I would have to communicate in to get the ultimate effect that I was looking for, which was someone to take care of a physical injury. And, if you want to make some other comparisons, we could talk about some of the mental health realms because that is a very core piece of our podcast, but we're not really going to go there. I just want to leave that little nugget because we're going back to this very physical dysfunction or disorder, right, of a hernia. So now I'm getting permission to advance or level up in this healthcare process. Because, why would they release funds to somebody who doesn't really need it or take a doctor off of a operation for someone who needs it more expediently than other patients? So that's kind of the rationale behind the triage process and some of these words that are used and communicated to patients in the hospital. So I really don't know what people's experiences are with doctors or the healthcare industry, and I know it varies by person and by what your experiences have been. So maybe this will shed a little different light into some of these words that you might have heard either on the news or in the healthcare realm, and maybe you haven't really Googled it or whatever. And I'm not trying to belittle anyone or whatever. I'm just kind of, again, talking about how I can cope sometimes, and that's through humor, right? So I think that humor is a very healthy expression. So part of me being able to tell the story and chat about it is that it helps me reframe what's going on. So even if I'm still experiencing pain, even if my physical condition has not really changed, I'm able to manage my pain personally from a different perspective because I feel like there is a plan in progress, right? I feel like there's a plan in progress. It has been communicated appropriately in the right channels. It has been received in the right way. And now we just have to wait for that to develop. But for those of you that have been in limbo for a while, or maybe you still are, or, you've lived through that, maybe you can relate a little bit of how powerless and frustrating and all the emotion waves that you get whenever you're going through something and you know that you have a positive solution and an end in sight, but try as hard as you might, you just can't seem to get there, and you just start wondering what is the end line? Is this truly a marathon where I'm just running 26.2 miles or whatever, or is this a mad munner, one of those endurance races, or something else? So those are some questions that we can kind of check in with ourselves, I think, and say, okay, where is my stress at in this area? Why? Okay, where do I need that resolution? Why? Okay, because I don't feel like I have a plan, or because I feel powerless, or whatever. Okay, cool. What can I do about that? Okay, well, I talked to my case manager. I talked to this person. I talked to this person. Talked to a patient advocate. Finally couldn't figure anything out. So I was like, all right, just calling anybody, right? See what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not, edit that out if we need to. I don't really care. But I'm just trying to give you like models or just examples through this kind of story process of, hey, there's still hope. Maybe the people that you're communicating to or the way you're communicating to them, maybe it's not getting through. Maybe they're not really understanding. Maybe and again, I've shifted the way I've communicated to every single way. And it's like, okay, still nothing with this person. Okay, cool. Let's check out. Let's go talk to somebody else. All right. Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of looking at this doctor like. I say, yep. So I'm like, all right. So here's the deal, man. I'm just trying to figure this out. How do I get this here taken care of? Because I know that I can't really operate on myself. I have a lot of medical knowledge, and I know that anytime I just come to somebody, they know that they have to have an objective finding, and they don't want to, pay for some of the diagnostics to do that whenever that should be reserved for somebody who needs it more whenever it's considered an elective surgery. So anyway, that's just kind of a little bit more of the humor frame. So it's just like, so here I am just holding in my guts, just kind of trying to rationally explain to him, because see, I understand this, and that's why it's frustrating to me, but it's just having to find the right way to communicate to the right people. And sometimes, again, it's that timing thing. So maybe it just so happened that I had a injury that manifested itself much like maybe some of these mental health problems at the same time that I was finally getting some access to doctors and getting some appointments booked again after a big lull due to, the shifts that were necessary to prevent the spread of this virus. So just a little bit of, my coronavirus experience and some of the dangers to isolation in this new world, right? So anyway, just a few little fun, let's see, fun little belly laughing jokes, you know what I mean? Just like Santa Claus. His belly shakes when he laughs. So I don't recommend laughing too much in my condition though, because that's one of the things that helps push my guts out. But I did feel like I wanted to breathe again and at least talk about some of these experiences from a different light, and that's just a way that I can help kind of reframe my emotional attachment to some of these experiences, and then give myself a way that I can kind of close myself off to that, say, okay, that's in the past. Where am I planting these seeds of growth of the future? Where can I look for? Where can I act? Where can I take steps? And if it's back to regenerative stuff, because that's all that I can do, then all right, cool, Brent, lay back down. But if it's like, okay, for my mental health, I need to at least create something. Okay, well, what am I going to do? I don't know how to draw, I'm going to find a way to learn some of these things that I can do so that I can express things and not fall back into some of my same patterns. You know what I'm saying? Some of the same things and routines that I do to cope, which are not always the healthiest way to do it. Again, maybe dwelling on that, stewing, thinking about it, justifying, letting my ego get involved, really. Like anything that really kind of like keeps me so attached to that it's causing me dis-peace for the present moment or disharmony for the future. It's just trying to find ways to cut that out. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm going to breathe again. I think that humor opens up the lungs in ways that, that aren't done in any other ways. And I'm going to just kind of reference some warrior books and stuff like that because I think it's fascinating. And, if you hear it from me multiple times, well, okay, that's fine. But Steven Pressfield, Gates of Fire, humor, and the therapeutic power. The story is that kind of later in this just brutal campaign of these 300 Spartans and these different other Greek city-states that kind of volunteered some of their warriors to fight in this period, this time that was forbidden to go to war in by the gods. But they knew that the largest army on the entire planet to date was advancing on them to destroy them and basically take away their weapons and assimilate them into that culture. So it took a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, personal courage, physical courage, mental courage, whatever you want to talk about it, moral courage, for some people to move against the entire culture that they existed within. So it was a big statement, one, but they believed that that was the necessary move at the time. Wrong, right, or indifferent, they acted. While, let's say politicians, or, well, it was politicians, while other, and everyone's waiting for news. Where are they at? When are they going to be here? When are they going to be here? Who can we rally? Who's got what resources? We need to put up a defense. We need to put up as much as we can, but we just don't have the time to really do it the way that we would like to do it because of everything that's going on, right? So, the Spartan king, the king of this community of warriors who that was their job within the Greek city-state system, was they were to train to be warriors to defend the populace, while all the other kind of city-states or whatever, and I might not be using the words right, but they would field their own armies and they would defend themselves, but it wasn't like a complete unity where they would fight for like a common cause outside of whatever their kind of fiefdom was or whatever their structure was. So, this guy says, well, how many people can we muster, right? Now, whenever you talk about 300 warriors back then, a battle train or a battle party would consist of more than that, because it takes a lot more than that to keep a military movement alive. You have a battle train. That comes with anyone that helps man, equip, repair, logistically support, and supply a military movement. So 300 men would, in that time, would also consist of slaves or different classes of the social structure that might not have been counted as the actual warriors within the campaign. So 300 plus the 500s or 800s or whatever of all these different things, plus the battle trains, because they all believed in the cause. Because regardless of where they fit into that hierarchy, there were people who were willing to die and know that regardless of what came after their death, they still believed that it was for the right purpose. And it was that commitment by a relative few amount of bodies, slave, freemen, warrior class, etc., that stood up to, again, what at the time was the largest, most powerful, whatever army in the world. And if it was or wasn't, whatever, that's the way it was communicated or understood to the Greek city-state. Right. So, humor. One of the characters was a cook. And as the numbers are dwindling, the fighters have like gone down, and now they're like putting people in that have just, lived with the fighters or trained with the fighters. So they're still worthy warriors whenever it comes to anything. Because a lot of these slaves, like, hey, your job's to freaking keep these warriors fighting and keep them strong and keep them whatever. So they were sparring partners. They were punching bags. They were like, part of the story is that they had to just hold shields with their backs up against trees while these warriors just ran into them over and over and over again until they basically cleared all of the trees between shields and slaves, essentially. It's the way the story kind of runs. So, but these people are like, yeah, dude, I'd much rather get mashed between wood with you dudes than do whatever it is over there with those dudes. So, they would also know how to put their people's armor on. They know how to nurse some of those wounds, because if you're a warrior, you're going to learn how to be a better warrior by engaging, by being dynamic, by fighting, and by losing, and by having mistakes, and by getting your bones broke, and by having bad things happen to you. And so your recovery process and stuff like that, and your ability to play that mental battle game of any type of combat sport is just huge. So, there was a very tight relationship that I think is understood from like a modern perspective on how things kind of relationships were. And that's something that I really want to talk about again. We've been highlighting some super powerful women, and I just saw the most incredible thing about this Viking ancestry DNA thing came back, that this like really well-known or very prominent Viking that was buried with like some of like super huge honors and stuff like that was in fact like a woman warrior chieftain, and it caused some controversy. But as this is kind of developing, it's causing a lot more perspective for some of these biases that we might have that we might not know we have, perspective biases and stuff like that. So anyway, I kind of digressed a little bit. I apologize. Back to 300 and humor, right? So these guys were like, all right, cool. Maybe we can go back to just smashing each other between trees whenever this is all over. That sounds like a lot more fun, guys. Okay, cool. Let's go back to that. So that's kind of what these guys are going through. But part of the way that these guys kind of got through it was as they're kind of grunting underneath their shields, like they had this guy who was a cook, and he had a different accent. And so as he's preparing the meals for these soldiers who are just exhausted, I mean, they've been relining up over and over and over again and not getting their rest periods, and having to treat casualties and move casualties off the field of battle and prep strategies and counterattacks for the different types of formations that they expected to come against them. So these people are completely exhausted. Well, what's going to save the day, right? A little bit of humor, a little bit of gallows humor. So there's this guy who's got this accent, and essentially what it would translate to, would it be like for someone who had just like, he cooked a bunch of eggs or bacon in the morning or whatever it was that he had, let's just say, and no matter what it was that he was trying to do to raise the spirits of the troops because he wasn't able to fight, but man, could he cook until they ran out of food and stuff like that. But anyway, so his little line was, wake up to this! Wake up to this! So that would kind of be the English translation for how he would stir people up, but he just had that spirit that no matter what was thrown his way, he was still just doing whatever it was that he could to help the cause, to help the belief, to help whoever, wherever, and that's what he could share. And it was just his normal thing of, hey man, I'm a really good cook and I can make people laugh while I cook. So even if I got twigs and roots and, whatever, I'll just make it as best as I can. And I'm just going to make people laugh. And that's some therapy there. That's some food for the soul. So I'm really excited to, one, go into some of that ancestry type DNA stuff that we were talking about. And then also to record with a really good buddy of mine who's been doing some really wonderful things. I've recorded with him before. I don't know if it got through final production, but either way, I'm excited to record with Seth again. So that is coming up as well. We talked about some really exciting stuff to share with you all. I don't really know how the conversation is going to go, but we're both really excited to record. So that's what I got for you guys this week. I'm super excited. I know that it's not St. Paddy's Day, but I'm recording it on the day after St. Paddy's Day. So I guess, we'll just do some little taggies there or whatever, because I guess everyone was Irish last night. And there we go, back to ancestry, right? I will tie it back together. I spent kind of most of my life believing that I was predominantly Irish based on all the paper genealogical trails that my family had kind of accumulated and passed down through oral and written records or whatever. Well, both of my brothers have done some kind of these, those like ancestry things. And okay, oh my goodness. But we got some more fun stories. Everyone's Irish tonight. We will catch back up with that, and I hope you enjoy it. But take care, y'all.
Thank you for joining us today on this curious roller coaster of life. If this is your stop, please exit peacefully and enjoy the rest of your day. If you're ready for another one, just push play. Just a final note before you go. Thank you, and thank you for feeling. The distillation and aging process is different for everyone. I'm not quite sure what you're ready for. Sip slowly and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that slow whiskey.